Good morning, Derek. So I told you I was going to send you a video. It's not going to be a pretty video. I'm just trying to communicate something. So first, if you wind up or when you speak to your engineers and those manufacturing these, I'm hoping to convey something here. And please know, as we spoke before, I've been in manufacturing a lot of years, since 1981. And even the last job I had, they paid me for troubleshooting and identifying manufacturing problems in both processes and also products. And so been doing this a long time. Also, you know that I'm completely dedicated to this product and Peltier technology. I'm quite familiar with it, and also spent a lot of time researching since we've been working together. So let me explain a couple things here first as to the reasoning why ultimately I believe, or I know that you guys are experts in manufacturing clothing. This here being a technology, my purposes for communicating this is we need to convert the thinking. Right now, we have clothing being priority and the technology being the accessory or secondary. And I'm going to explain here and show the reasons why we need to switch that thinking. The technology needs to be given first priority in the manufacturing, and let the clothing items be secondary. Let them be the accessory add-on after the fact. And I'm going to share multiple reasons why we should switch the thinking. It will reduce the manufacturing cost, and it will increase the quality and the customer experience overall. So, as you can see on this slide here, and I'm going to send this separately in the PDF, and I'm sure you guys already know a lot of this. I'm just going to repeat it so that I can explain where my thinking is from. And so as this one says here, our bodies receive and disperse heat in 4 ways, okay? And we have convection, the process of conveying heat through the movement of air, in our case, air across the skin. Okay, so the wind or a fan. So in other words, we want as much of our skin to be exposed to air as possible. If we have extra clothing over the top, then we are working against the goal of cooling the body from the inside out. Secondly, radiation, which this one is mostly going to be affected by the sun. Okay, this one works against us also. And I'm going to say not much that we can do about this, other than we do need more convection to counter the effects of the radiation that we're working in or walking in or whatever it may be. Excuse me. The next one, evaporation. And so the reason why we sweat, this also is a natural process for cooling us. If we are covered with clothing, we are working against the goal of cooling the body. Okay, and then finally conduction, which that's where we come in with the Peltier modules applied to the body. But as we'll see, if the Peltier modules are not pressed against the body, okay, then they're not really working. Okay, and they're not going to be effective for what our real goal is. Okay, so the convection and evaporation can help us, but we need to magnify that possibility in the way we're manufacturing. Radiation, yeah, that one is working against us. So conduction, we need to make that as solid as possible in our product and process. So let's go to the next one, I think. And yeah, conduction was the missing link. So anyway, that's the one that we are using. All right, here, I'm sure you already know this as well, but because the locations of the body that you picked have the minimal amount of fat, okay, the rib cages on the sides, front, and rear on the rib cages. But at the same time, let's make note here. This is thermal mapping of the body, and what it's showing is where the body naturally emits and exchanges heat through convection, really, because this is the thermal imaging showing that it's a heat mapping of the body. So you were already picking on the back. You can see the V going up across the shoulder blades. It really is the biggest point, and also on top of the head. By using the rib cages, so there we're adding more comfort. But we definitely need these areas. Let's just say we don't want to be restricting the heat from being able to escape the body naturally by the clothing that we use, the clothing items that we add into the manufacturing. And please go back. I'll be sending this PDF separately, but really try to read and understand this logic as well. And the information sources you'll see over here, they are linked, which you can go to the source of the information. I'm sure that you have lots of this information available to you as well in China. So the other thing, why we need to leave the skin as much exposed as possible, excuse me, sorry, because ultimately we really do have a perpetual conduction going on. And this here shows the skin surface layer, and just below is the cutaneous circulation, as it's called. And I learned a lot about this while researching for these Kiwi air-conditioned products. But anyway, we need the skin to be exposed because the purpose of these blood vessels in the skin, one of the main purposes is exchanging heat with the surrounding environment. That's why it's there. So we don't want to be covering it up with clothes. At least we don't want to be the main reason that makes it harder for the body to cool, when our objective is to cool the body through conduction by cooling the bloodstream. Okay, so we need to not work against ourselves with all these clothing items. And what's next? Okay, and then yes, we're obviously doing this through more of the perpetual conduction through the skin, and then into the blood flow to the organs and around the body. All right, so we know all that. Here is the latest vest, and we had this gentleman use it as a demonstration on a golf course. So, a couple of things. I guess maybe it would have been better if it didn't have the color of a safety vest, because if you look at this picture here, and again, know that I'm working together with you, but we have to be honest. This picture here and the responses of people, it looks kind of ridiculous. And we are trying to, a couple of things with this. You want to press the modules close to the body, okay? But if we're using the clothing to do this, we have a couple things working against us. First, we're making the clothing tight, and that's going to be smothering the body from the convection, emitting the heat from the body, okay? So that's working against us there. By just using the clothing itself. Secondly, if we're using the clothing to press the modules tight against the body, we're stretching the fabric on the clothing. And when someone is working and moving and turning their body, there's going to be failures in the stitching. And it's going to be pulling the materials apart, and we're going to have failures there. And lastly, the positioning of the modules. It's not possible for this vest here for us to control the positioning on an exact location following a science of where that location should be. Because the way the modules are positioned, and if you go from a big person to a small person, that positioning of the modules just has to change because of their size. And we don't want that. We want to have total control that the primary product is the modules and the technology, and they are positioned exactly, which we would provide instructions. It has to be number one of priority and importance that the modules are positioned exactly where the science says, and the modules are pulled close to the body. Okay, and I know you already know this. All right. However, we do want to pull them close to the body, and I know you're trying to do that. But with the unisize items there, they may wind up on a small person, they're going to wind up in here, and on a big person, they're going to wind up out here. We have no control over that. And as I said, if you do it in the clothing, then the clothing items are going to be pulling tight to the body, not allowing the body to breathe and get rid of the heat. And also, when someone is working and stretching and moving, it's going to be stretching the clothing item, stretching the threads, the fabric, and then we're going to have failures and stitches coming out. Okay, so all this being said, if we could, by shifting this thinking of putting the technology first, okay, forget about the clothing items for now. Technology first, let the clothing be accessories later. And so, oops, what did I do with that? Oh, all right. So, however you design it and come up with it, just think about the modules and only straps, or even but it must be elastic, or even strings between the modules. Not really strings, they have to be adjustable, so that the only thing that we're dealing with is the modules to the body. Okay, and they are to be positioned with the instructions that we provide, which are supported by science, the best we can possibly cool the body through conduction. Conduction of the cooling into the bloodstream. So we want, obviously, we want to control the positioning, whether it's a small person or a big person, that we have the modules exactly in the same place on a small person and a big person, okay, in the front and in the rear on the rib cage. And it would only be straps that are adjustable over the shoulders, so that we are adjusting the height in the front and the height in the rear. They need to be adjustable between them on the sides, so that we are controlling the exact positioning on the rib cage, following instructions, that is following the science. And then obviously adjustable here too, so that they can still be pulled tight when snapped together, just like you did this one here, except we need to get rid of the clothing, get rid of the vest. After you have this foundational product that is truly effective for why it exists, from there, let's make clothing items accessories that can be added on, or this technology can just be worn with straps only over someone's shirt, so that we are not responsible for restricting the breathing of the skin. Okay, and it's technology first, not the clothing. That's really the point I'm trying to get across here. Also, then, if it's elastic, and we're not going to have failures in our product, okay, our product would do its job and not have failures, let them use their own reflective vest. Okay, so they just put on the technology, they can throw their own reflective vest on, we're not responsible for that. Technology first, clothing items separate and second. And then when you start to add clothing to this, the foundation stays the same. Okay, and then the clothing is adapted for the modules and the technology, not the technology being adapted to the clothing. That's the real point here. So please, yeah, consider all of that, because it's going to make a big difference. Only having the modules and positioned where you want them can go into so many industries. I mean, we cover construction like you are right now, but you don't have to worry about all these different sizes of vest and what they look like and the shape, and if someone's going to like the style. They just put the cooling on underneath, and they use their own reflective vest. If somebody wants to use it on a motorcycle or the golf course, I mean, they can wear their own polo shirt on the golf course and just put the technology on over the top. Then we could enter into making our own polo shirts that have the breathing, the fishnet covering over the modules so that they can breathe, or we can get into that later. But very first, if we could stop with all these different clothing things and only get the technology rock solid, that the modules are pressed against the body so that we can convey conduction, cooling, to the bloodstream, and that it's going to be positioned properly, whether it's a large person or a small person. That's mainly it, Derek. So if there's anything else, I mean, yes, I would like to continue this conversation in person. If there's some people we can talk about more about it, that would be great. Just let me know. So that's mainly it, and I will include the PDF of this other thing. I know you've already seen it. Okay, yeah, here. So yes, I mean, for example, you can see the shirt here. How much heat is that shirt going to be restricting and keeping in the body? So that's the point. Okay, thank you very much, and we will talk soon.